بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We are the 19th of November 2020, and over the last few months we have heard of a number of scholars passing away. And about a week ago we heard of the passing away of Sh Halabi rahimahullah ta'ala wa ghafara lah. Being a controversial individual, his death has sparked very mixed reactions, and we've had the reactions of the usual suspects that have shocked many people, as their reaction was a bit like when children are in the schoolyard and they play football and you have rival groups that are interacting, and one of the kids trips and falls and hurt himself. His rival stand back saying, "Ah ha ha ha, look, you fell." This is the kind of reaction that we have got from certain followers of theirs to this passing away of Sheikh Ali Hassan al-Halabi. Obviously people have been shocked by this kind of behavior, but the crew has produced proof to justify their behavior. So in this particular video I would like to do the following number of things. Number one, give you a very brief background story of the accusations that have been made against Ali Hassan al-Halabi. Number two, I would like to look at the proof that these people are using to justify this kind of behavior. Number three, we shall be looking at what Ibn Taymiyyah said concerning how one should behave with people who have sunnah and bid'ah in them. Alright, so this is by no means a defense of Ali Hassan al-Halabi. For this video, I'm very simply going to assume that everything that he has been accused of is true. Alright, because very honestly, I've never busied myself with the story. I'm not a student of his. I just happen not to dig his audios or his books. That's not a criticism, that's just me. There's some great scholars, like for example Sheikh Ibn Baz. I don't really dig his audios nor his books. I like reading his fatwa because they're very beneficial, but it's just not clicking with me. So that's just me. That's not a criticism of the Sheikh, that's just me. So I don't really know how much of it is true and what is not true, because I never busy myself with it. So I'm just gonna assume everything is true. So number one, the background story. Ali Hassan al-Halabi, a long time ago, it must be about 20 years ago, or close to 20 years ago, has been accused of having a certain level of irja. And this accusation came from the scholars of Riyadh, many of them, if not all of them, being part of Al-Lajna Da'ima. Well, it was actually published by Al-Lajna Da'ima. So understand what we mean when we say an accusation of irja. Irja is of different levels. You have the top level of irja, which is the tajahum, the Jahmiyyah madhab. These people believe that as long as you believe that Allah exists, you're a believer, you're a mu'min. And this is, the scholars have said to these people, say, based on your principle, Iblis is a mu'min and Fir'aun and his followers are mu'mineen. So that just cannot be true. You're clashing with the clear text and just expanding on the principles that you have laid down. You're going nowhere. The ramifications of this belief are huge, because if you are misdefining faith, you are misdefining kufr, etc. I mean, the consequences of this mistake at this level of the source is tremendous down the line. That is the top level of irja. Then we have another level of irja, which is far lower, which is called irja al-fuqaha. And the ta'ifa is called murji'atul fuqaha. The irja of the people of fiqh. Why has it been called this way? Because many of the fuqaha of a certain generation were affected by this type of irja. Now what is this type of irja? So the first type completely removes deeds from faith. Faith is one thing and your deeds is like like praying and all this. It's a cool thing to do, but at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with your faith. So somebody who fasts and prays and gives sadaqah and does all the good deeds you can think of is at the same level of faith as somebody who doesn't pray, doesn't fast, falls in all the sins you can think of, commits shirk, sihr, etc. That is literally the qawl of the murji'ah. Okay, murji'atul fuqaha, they are far from this. They claim that, or they express deed as not being faith itself, but linked to faith, a consequence of faith, a necessary implication of faith. So they make a distinction, but they make a connection. However, we have the clear text of the Quran and the Sunnah that show us that deeds are part of faith. Okay, so this being said, you understand that the difference between the irja of Jahmiyyah and Murji'atul Fuqaha, that there's a massive gap between the two. Alright, so the statements that, or the accusations that Al-Lajna Da'ima made against Ali Hassan al-Halabi are concerning statements that fall under the vast umbrella of the ramifications that came from this Irja'ul Fuqaha. So we understand it's a mistake, but we also understand that it's not tajahum. Alright, let's put things into its right place. Okay. In that day and age, Sheikh Rabi' and his followers, including the heads of Espops, fought tooth and nail to defend Ali Hassan al-Halabi. Okay, so on this particular accusation, they were clearly in the camp of Ali Hassan al-Halabi. Few years passed by and Sheikh Rabi' got into an argument with certain people and gave marching orders for all the people of Sunnah to cut off, boycott these particular individuals, make hajr of them. Ali Hassan al-Halabi as well as his companions from Jordan refused to comply. They viewed that this argument was not an argument based upon deen, rather it was people who got into personal matters and just started arguing into complexities and trying to find a way to justify their arguing, but the deen does not, they are by no means deen-wise forced to take this or that position. So lo and behold, they got written off, and Ali Hassan al-Halabi seems to be the only one who kind of remained, let's say, apparent on the da'wah scene, so he remained the only target to be shot at, because the other ones kind of mainly went on the ground and didn't happen to be that popular anymore. While they were doing their thing, they were not out there in the open anymore. Whereas Ali Hassan, as his da'wah was still moving forward and being widespread, so this is why he became a target. Had he gone on the ground, nobody would have busied themselves with him. Okay, so what's funny now is that, especially in the English-speaking world, as pubs and crew have the nerve to say that amongst the people that refuted Ali Hassan al-Halabi are Sheikh al-Fawzan and other scholars from Riyadh, meaning the Lajna Da'ima. Whereas very clearly, when this particular event happened, they were in the camp of Ali Hassan and upon the same position. And nowadays, the English world is not really aware of this. There's a back and forth that's fairly silent, but still makes some hoo-ha here and there, especially in the French-speaking world, because they're also very much into that, between scholars of Riyadh and Sheikh Rabi' himself and his followers upon the same masail of Iman. So, what kind of dishonesty are we facing when they use the criticism of Al-Lajna Da'ima against Ali Hassan al-Halabi when the same criticism applies to them and their leadership? That's the kind of people we're dealing with. Second point, let's look at the proofs that they bring to celebrate the death of Ali Hassan. So a very quick Google search will bring you a myriad of articles written by sympathizers of the movement or people deep into the movement. So I'm sure you've heard this before, but just for the sake. So there is some blah blah, and then he brings some some kind of athar to back up what he's claiming. Alright. لما جاء خبر موت المريسي الضال وبشر بن الحارث في السوق قال لولا أنه موضع شهرة لكان موضع شكر وسجود الحمد لله الذي أماته. Reported in Tarikh Baghdad and Lisan al-Mizan. So when the death of Bishr al-Mirrisi was announced, Bishr ibn al-Harith, which was one of the ulama of the Sunnah, was at the market and the news came to him and he said basically, Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah who removed Bishr al-Mirrisi from this ummah. وقيل للإمام أحمد بن حنبل الرجل يفرح بما ينزل بأصحاب أبي دواد عليه في ذلك إثم قال ومن لا يفرح بهذا. Reported in the book of Sunnah from Al-Khallal. So Imam Ahmad is asked, somebody rejoices at whatever afflicts or death coming to the companions of Ibn Abi Duad. Is there anything wrong with that? Is there any sin for doing so? And Imam Ahmad answered, and who would not rejoice at something like that? Okay, so here we see that we have two athar. We do not have an ayah, we do not have a hadith, we do not have a qawl of a sahabi. We have athar of people that are in the early generations, A'imma of Islam in the early generations. Okay, is it an athar? That's the first thing. The second thing, the athar in itself. Is it an athar where the Imam says the ruling upon such and such is such and such? Like he clearly defines a mas'ala and gives a ruling on it. In the first case, no, it's not. It's an event that happened. Something that happened. Bishr al-Mirrisi died. Bishr ibn al-Harith said, Alhamdulillah alladhi amatahu. Okay. So, question to the fuqaha of as pubs. What are the principles of fiqh that come into play when we extract rulings from these kind of athar? This one right here, the one of Bishr al-Mirrisi, the story of Bishr al-Mirrisi. That's the first question for you guys. Second, the story of Imam Ahmad. What was Imam Ahmad asked about? Was he asked about the people of bid'ah? Was he asked when somebody from the people of bid'ah dies? Is it permissible to rejoice about that? No. Ashabu ibn Abi Duad. Specifically the companions of Ibn Abi Duad, who a number of scholars made takfir of. So in order to illustrate what I'm saying, I'm going to read to you just very quickly about Bishr al-Mirrisi, so that you know who we're talking about and I'm not making this up. Speak further. So this is the summary of Siyar by al-Dhahabi. Al-Dhahabi says, Rahimahullah Ta'ala, Al-Mirrisi, المتكلم المناظر البارع أبو عبد الرحمن بشر بن غياث بن أبي كريمة العدوي مولاهم البغدادي المريسي من موالي آل زيد بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه. كان بشر من كبار الفقهاء. So Bishr was from the big scholars of fiqh. Up until ونظر في الكلام فغلب عليه وانسلخ من الورع والتقوى وجرد القول بخلق القرآن. Up until he got involved into ilm al-kalam, principles of logic, philosophy, deduction, etc. Once he got into that, it absorbed him and he just completely broke off from everything that he was upon, from piety, ibadah, etc. And he adopted the position of the fact that, or the position, the claim that the Quran is created, and he started calling to that. حتى كان عين الجهمية, until he became a full-blown Jahmi. في عصره وعالمهم, he became a Jahmi in his day and age, because he was post-Jahmiya, post-Jahm ibn Safwan, I'm sorry. فمقته أهل العلم وكفره عدة. So the people of knowledge detested him, and a number of them made takfir of him. Bishr al-Mirrisi is one of the biggest heretics of this ummah. The things that have been reported about him are just at a level of kufr that's beyond imagination. So, and he goes on and says, قال قتيبة بشر المريسي كافر. Imam Qutayba, clear-cut takfir of Bishr al-Mirrisi. So, to the fuqaha of Ashbabs, Abu Yahya, Nadim, and the Ibn Taymiyyah of the West. Based upon what principle do you apply a qawl of an Imam of the past that was for Bishr al-Mirrisi, who I've just exposed to you, and the companions of Ibn Abi Duad? Ibn Abi Duad being the one who managed to persuade the rulers of the Khalq al-Quran qawl and made it and convinced the ruler to enforce it upon the population. And scholars being tortured and killed, and people being tortured and killed for refusing to say al-qawl bi khalq al-Quran. The people who done that, the companions of Ibn Abi Duad and Bishr al-Mirrisi, we have A'imma giving an opinion about them, a ruling about them, based upon what principle do you take that ruling that's specifically for these individuals, not even the Ta'ifah, the individuals, and you apply to Ali Hassan al-Halabi? Like, please refute me on this. I beg you. Explain to me the principles of usul al-fiqh that allow you to take these athar, deduct a hukam, and then prove to me how this hukam applies to somebody like Ali Hassan al-Halabi, fardan, that all the accusations made against him are true. So let's look at what Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala has said concerning using such athar and what to do with them. I'm talking to the normal people now, right? As pubs, you go do what I told you to do. I'm waiting. Alright? So Ibn Taymiyyah, Majmu' al-Fatawa, volume 28, page 210. وفي مسائل إسحاق بن منصور وذكره الخلال في كتاب السنة في باب مجانبة القول القرآن في مجانبة من قال القرآن مخلوق. So Ishaq ibn Mansur, as comes now, ask Imam Ahmad about the people who say Al-Quran makhluk. What should we do with them? Okay, so these people at this level of bid'ah, how should we interact with them? So, okay. عن إسحاق أنه قال لأبي عبد الله من قال القرآن مخلوق القرآن مخلوق قال يعني الإمام أحمد ألحق به كل بلية. The people who say that, I attribute every evil to these people. Okay, so Ishaq asked فيظهر العداوة لهم أم يداريهم. So should one show animosity towards these people, or kind of like, yudarihim is like keep low profile, stay away from them and avoid clashing with them. That's yudarihim. So Imam Ahmad said, قال أهل خراسان لا يقون بهم. The people of Khorasan, because the Jahmiyyah in that area, they were quite powerful, they managed to convince the leadership, etc. He said the people of Khorasan, they are not able to display enmity towards them, so they have to adopt an other strategy. low profile, do your thing, make sure you don't clash with them, okay, and Allah will bring about something. وهذا الجواب منه مع قوله في القدرية لو تركنا الرواية عن القدرية لتركناها عن أكثر أهل البصرة. And Imam Ahmad also said, so Ibn Taymiyyah now is talking. This qawl is quite similar to Imam Ahmad's qawl concerning narrating a hadith from the Qadariyah. Alright, so the Qadariyah people, this is a certain level of kufr. Right, we're not just this, we're beyond bid'ah. We are bid'ah that reaches the level of kufr. Okay, so these people, Imam Ahmad said, we still narrate from them. Why? Because if we don't, we're gonna lose all the ahadith and all the chains that go through al-Basra. Alright? لتركناها عن أكثر أهل البصرة مع ما كان يعاملهم في المحنة. طيب. من الدفع بالتي هي أحسن ومخاطبتهم بالحجج ويفسر ذلك الكلام وفعله. Okay, so first point I want to make is that first of all here you see that Ibn Taymiyyah is trying to explain to you that although we have certain athar where Imam Ahmad and others give a general rulings but Ahl al-Bid'ah, cut them off. Once we get into down to earth situations, we see that it doesn't work that way. This oversimplified thing is, oh, he's from the people of Bid'ah, don't talk to him and this and that, and just because he is not 100% in line with your understanding of the Sunnah, people is very far from it. And then he goes into talking of making hajr. And what I'm getting at is this. وكثير من أجوبة الإمام أحمد وغيرهم من الأئمة. So we're talking about these athar that are narrated from Imam Ahmad and others from the A'imma. Many of the answers of Imam Ahmad and the A'imma خرج على سؤال سائل قد علم المسؤول حاله. These are answers to questions from individuals or about individuals, and this Imam who's asked knows the particular status and situation either about the person asked or the one he's asking about. So, أو خرج خطابا لمعين قد علم حاله, or it was a piece of advice given to a specific individual and Imam Ahmad knows, or the Imam that's asked knows all the context specifically. علم حاله فيكون بمنزلة قضايا الأعيان الصادر عن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this is in level of dalil. Okay, when we're looking at this dalil, what does it encompass? It's قضايا الأعيان, the specific cases from the hadith of the Prophet. When the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would say to a companion, do this. Why did he say to this companion, do this? And he didn't get on the minbar and say, hi people, listen, now let's all do this. Because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave an order to a companion based upon a specific situation of that companion. Alright, these are matters of usul al-fiqh. There's some ahadith from the wording, we understand this is a general wording, it applies to everybody based on certain conditions. Whereas other wordings indicate that it applies to this specific individual. However, because it applies to this specific individual due to a certain context behind him, from then on until the end of time, whoever finds himself in the same situation as this individual, the same ruling applies to him. So many of these athar that this particular jama'ah keeps on using, to justify their weird positions that just the Muslims are so disgusted from, and then they tarnish the reputation of Salafi and the Salafis through it. That's exactly what we're talking about here. This is istidlal fi ghayr al-mawdi'. And this particular situation we're talking about right now with Ali Hassan al-Halabi rahimahullah ta'ala wa ghafara lah is a prime example of this. So, إنما يثبت حكمها في نظيرها. So this ruling only applies to whoever is in the same situation, something likely. So the athar of Imam Ahmad that we've read and Bishr ibn al-Harith can be applied to nowadays to people who are at the level of kufr of Bishr al-Mirrisi and the companions of Ibn Abi Duad, not Ali Hassan al-Halabi. So, you know, Kibar al-Rafida, etc. Just to give you an example. Now the third point we want to talk about is assuming that the accusations about Ali Hassan al-Halabi are true. The ones from Lajna Daima and the ones from the gang. That, you know, when Sh Halabi speaks, it's not permissible to have another opinion. And, you know, all these principles he brought to justify the fact that he has not taken the revelation from Sh Halabi. I don't know how you want to phrase it. The Jarh Mufassar. All that is misguidance and opposing the manhaj of the Salaf, etc. Let's say all of it is true. Let's look at Ali Hassan al-Halabi as a whole, and then let's find out what Ibn Taymiyyah says about how we should deal with such individuals. So Ibn Taymiyyah says, we're still in the same volume 28 on page 209. وَإِذَا اجْتَمَعَ فِي الرَّجُلِ الْوَاحِدِ خَيْرٌ وَشَرٌ فُجُورٌ وَطَاعَةٌ مَعْصِيَةٌ وَسُنَّةٌ وَبِدْعَةٌ طاعة ومعصية وسنة وبدعة استحق من الموالاة والثواب بقدر ما فيه من الخير واستحق من المعاداة والعقاب بحسب ما فيه من الشر فيجتمع في الشخص الواحد موجبات الإكرام والإهانة فيجتمع له هذا وهذا كاللص الفقير تقطع يده لسرقته ويعطى من بيت المال ما يكفي لحاجته. Ibn Taymiyyah says, when you have a man who has combined good and evil, disobedience and obedience, sins and good deeds, sunnah and bid'ah, sunnah wa bid'ah, second line, second paragraph, second line, sunnah wa bid'ah, I'm not making this up, it's Ibn Taymiyyah talking. Istahaqqa min al-muwalat, he deserves from the muwala, the allegiance, and the reward according to the level of good that's in him. And he deserves from the animosity and punishment in accordance to the level of evil that's in him. فَيَجْتَمِعُ فِي الشَّخْصِ الْوَاحِدِ. So in the same individual, you will have the matters that will necessarily imply honoring him and dishonoring him. So let's look at Ali Hassan al-Halabi. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, wal-Asma wal-Sifat. Does he tick the boxes? To my knowledge, he ticks the boxes. When it comes to masail of fiqh, does he tick the boxes? To my knowledge, he ticks the boxes. He's not the kind of guy who says, oh no, riba is cool. Alcohol, yeah, you know, like as long as it's not within, you know. Halal and haram. To my knowledge, he ticks the boxes. When it comes to ibadah, sunnah, bid'ah, etc. To my knowledge, he ticks the boxes. Alright? All we have against him is this accusation of irja al-fuqaha, and not like full blown, but on certain masail specifically, because as I said, it's a wide umbrella of things. And we have his opinion that he is not obliged to follow Sheikh Rabi''s Jarh Mufassar, which is based on a khabar fiqh. He probably also has some real mistakes somewhere, alright, that I'm just not aware of and maybe nobody picked up upon, because he's a human being. But with all the rest, everything he calls to, is it from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you to bring out these athar about Bishr ibn al-Risi and the companions of Ibn Abi Duad and others? To make these disgusting tweets that you're making and these disgusting comments and whatnot? Because really, people, we gotta ask ourselves, when you have somebody like Ali Hassan al-Halabi in Sham, and we know the state of Sham today, Sophia is widespread, liberalism ideologies and the Kharabit widespread, Arab nationalism widespread. And then you have somebody like Ali Hassan al-Halabi, who's there. He's calling to all these matters of the Sunnah, but he has these particular issues. What kind of what kind of understanding do you have to point your sniper scope in his direction in the context that he's in and pull the trigger day in, day out? It's just amazing. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.